was on the electoral process to have democracy. Yes, democracy has yielded some dividends. You have a pluralistic media landscape, you have a multi-party democracy and so on. But when you go beneath the surface, we don't have it. Intra-party problems abound. Problems abound at elections. But I'd like to mention two things where if we miss the boat, it's going to be very difficult to develop in this country. And I say this because of my discipline. The area of infrastructure and the area of natural resources. Without energy, we are not going to develop. There is a correlation between the energy supply in the country and the level of development. We have not approached it well. From 2002, we had the chance of ushering in private sector participation into that sector. We missed the boat. We are at a stage whereby we have an infrastructure deficit with water, with roads, and what have you. And the agreements in terms of ushering in private sector participation have not been kosher. We have not done our feasibility study and due diligence well. We go into projects because of the grander state of the project. They're mainly driven by our politicians, usually the people at the head, and there is no thought given to it. We don't have a national development agenda. All the agenda that we've had, agenda for prosperity, agenda for change, PRSP, the medium-term development plan, the Big Five and so on, they're all driven by politics and driven by political people who have their own aspirations. They put in, one man says, I want an airport. The other man comes the next time, I want an airport on land. The other man comes the next time, oh, I want a bridge. I want to do it in a different place. We don't have anything as a country which we rally around us to develop it. And this comes to this issue of this constitution, which from Cowan's days, which the inordinate power of the presidency and the power of acquiescence, the tendency of acquiescence in this country, we have not changed it. For 16 years, we kept to the same thing. So you have an executive president who is very powerful. He comes into power, he appoints all his cronies. There's no thought given to meritocracy. They upturn the civil service system altogether. They go and impose people in institutions. And that is going on. With that, I talk to investors every day. Private sector participation is not going to take root because we're not approaching it from a very rational point of view. If we had wanted to build, sort out the water problem, do we need to tap into the river Ruker? Do we need to expand Puma? These are the things this debate should be going on. What do we do about rural electrification? I was part of the group that drew up the energy policy. It says get a rural electrification fund and a rural electrification board. Have we put those structures in place? All of those. And for natural resources, I was mentioning the fact that for 1930 to 1998, if you need the heart of the matter, $15 billion worth of diamonds. Our natural resources, we have mined over and over again. But yet still, when you read the economic picture of Sierra Leone, mining contributes 70-80% of the economy, of export earnings, and a certain percentage of GDP. It's been like that since I left college in the 70s, it's been like that. And we haven't changed it. We haven't diversified the economy. We haven't plowed out that money that we earn in the other sectors of the economy. We have not taken decisions that are sustainable, that will take this country forward. They've talked about our middle-level manpower. It's very poor. I've worked in the industry, and when you take new graduates and so on, you've got to train them. If you don't train in your own place of work, the middle-level manpower is very poor in Sierra Leone. So how are we going to progress? I believe, one, the governance system, it has to change. This is not in power in the hands of one person, it has to change. This majoritization, it has to change. Meritocracy has to come in. If you don't address those fundamental problems and address the problem of the Constitution, all of these problems are going to stay with us.
Thank you very much.
Let's briefly on a few of these things because the other panelists have to speak. On the issue of young people, why don't you have more young people at the table? I'm one proponent of young people. I like young people in positions. I think they will do very well. They're very vibrant. They have good ideas. I run a company in which all of my managers are very, very, very young and they do very well. However, I must say it's not a problem of youth. A lot of issues about integrity, about people that will do well, about the culture of acquiescence that really disturbs we, the old people that have messed up this country, I see being applicable to young people. So it's not a question of just being young, it's a question of inculcating those values. And somebody asked a question about, Antonia asked, what can we do? I think it's a good question. I think men of courage need to stand up. I think that when we watch history, even though they did suffer, when you watch people like Saif Ismail and the way they stood up to Sheikh Stevens, when you watch people like Taki, there are people who spoke their minds in those days, and we have to learn to speak. I know it's very difficult because the way the economy is structured, everybody depends on a government. They say, oh, no, put brain like water, and blah, blah, blah. But I think we have to learn to try to be independent. At least through professional organizations, I believe we can speak. Bar Association, Institution of Engineers, we can speak our voice. But by and large, most of those people are a little bit compromised. That's why I give hope to an institution like Renaissance. But even with Renaissance, you can argue that a lot of the people who used to be very vocal are now part of the system and they pipe down a bit. So it depends. I think men of courage need to stand up. Politics and development, I don't think you need to draw the line. The difference is development and politics can go hand in hand, democracy and politics. What the difference is that it has to be a developmental state. If it's a democracy without it being developmental, you wouldn't go forward. So we've had Southeast Asian autocratic states go forward. We've had liberal democracies like Mauritius and so on go forward. But the difference is that they had a vision and you know what you're working towards and you're developmental. So it doesn't need to be mutually exclusive. I like Sebe's allusion to resilient. I like to say for us resilience is being compliant, being docile and so on. Resilience can mean, yes, we stand up for hardship for a while. But how long have we got to endure this? So resilience is not necessarily a very good thing. I think it's a good thing if we're working towards getting out of that resilience. And in the case of electricity, somebody mentioned Liberia. Why are they not complaining? Why is it not a priority? Some of our neighbors are blessed. Liberia, for example, has Mount Kofi, which is a 100 megawatt hydro station. So they're not as pressed as we are. Most of our neighbors also, Liberia is able to pay for their CLSU costs. Not that they're much better than we are, but perhaps things are more of an even keel to try to get out of that mess. And Suna mentioned attitudinal change. We can have all of these institutions. We've had institutions related to attitude, to democracy, but by and large, they always acquiesce to the whims of the people in power. And the government actively goes into these institutions. And even when you listen to their pronouncements, it's this National Commission for Peace and so on, it's always pro-government. So if you want to set up those kind of institutions, you have to make sure they're well-funded and they have to be independent. And then the second thing, in Sierra Leone, it's not just a matter of attitudinal change. I think it's a question of enforcement. We are building a structure in Mount Zion for the Anglican Church. And that used to be a pristine area. You had a greenbelt area. That area is now devastated. People are cutting down trees. We have the area, Kuma catchment for our water, people are building there and cutting down trees. You have people not paying for electricity. You have 60% losses. More than half of it is theft of electricity. So we have to talk about enforcement when we're talking about attitudinal change. And lastly, my good friend Ibrahim talked about having role models. I strongly believe in that. I wrote an article at one time. I said, who is Sierra Leone's Desmond Tutu? I mean, let's look, who can you identify in this country to say, I wish you had more people like this person who will get out of this place? You will find it very difficult to identify those people. And role models are very, very important. I think that's a good question. Thank you.
So, Adewit's engineer Andrew Kiley. Good evening, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
To Rise Radio. Yeah, you know, be one of the panelists them inside the program today. You know, be one of the panelists inside the program today. And a lot you talk about, we get for do with 63 years along the line. What in Salon do achieve? What in we as a people do achieve from that one day?
Well, I'm not going to say Salon do achieve nothing because we don't get a lot of problems since independence. We don't get war, we don't get coups and so on. We don't come back to democracy, we don't get successful elections. However, we're trying at the democratic space. But development-wise, I'm not going to say we're not developed. We don't try with electricity, water, different things. But other countries that we're working in are the same boats very fast. So now what we get for do for make we go further.
One part you point that we make, you say there is a nexus between them again, but with a missing link.
Yes.
Salon's economy is moved by selfish people, if I can call it properly.
Well, I'm not really talking about selfish, but when I say there is a link, it not means necessarily because a country democratic that they develop. If you only develop, if you become a developmental state, that is, you take actions, then we go develop the country. That develop the private sector, make people then get a voice in decision making. Your constitution, get forbid that so that most people the rule of law there, you get separation of powers. So we got to try for that because once then things then sorted out, you go see investment begin coming. Then we also get to manage with natural resources very well. For 1930 to 1995, Salon export over $15 billion worth of diamonds, which we'll get for sure for this. Most of the things they get for be addressed at the country.
So finally, what you go left with for make we go ponder as Sierra Leoneans?
What are the left we and where I talk to Renaissance people, men of courage need for stand up. People get for speak up for what's wrong. People get for not necessarily criticize the government, but get for be involved in debate and afraid. I mentioned the issue, for example, of constitution. 16 years they try for change constitution, and we still have different holes that we will not feel. So there are problems what we need to address, and people then for speak up and participate and assist the government.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.